Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Toledo Museum of Art's Art Minute. My name is Tom Isley, and I'm a docent here at the Toledo Museum of Art. Today, we are looking at Dan by an artist by the name of Alvin Loving. Mr. Loving grew up in the Detroit area, went to college, got his Master's of Fine Arts from the University of Michigan in 1963. Early in his career, Alvin Loving was into geometric shapes, very dramatic geometric shapes. A lot of his influence came from an artist by the name of Frank Stella, whose work we also have at the Toledo Museum of Art. Alvin Loving had a very special exhibit. He had a solo exhibit in 1968 at the Whitney Museum. Very unusual for a young artist to get a solo exhibit that early in his career. A little later, in about the early 70s, 1973 is when this artwork was done, he changed from geometric shapes into these very non-geometric shapes. When you first look at Dan, you want to look at it and try and see what kind of shapes you might get from this. So take a look at it and see what you might see. A lot of visitors to the museum, when they first look at Dan, they see a dinosaur. How about you? You see a dinosaur? They even see a stegosaurus, which is kind of interesting because we have an Alexander Calder sculpture on our Monroe Street patio titled Stegosaurus. So another fun thing to do is to look at Dan and then go look at the Calder out of the front of the museum and see how the two compare. Part of Alvin Loving's background, why he was into such dramatic colors like what you see here, his mother was a quilter, and she would work with these large dramatic colors, and he would be fascinated by those colors as she was working with them. Does anybody have any questions?
We did have one. They want to know how we keep the dust off of this work. How do we keep it clean, I guess?
Wow, that's a pretty good question. This being made of cardboard, this is torn cardboard, it's kind of fragile, but we have, our conservation folks have feather dusters that they use on a lot of the more fragile works. So those can dust this quite gently and keep the dust at bay. Well, that's all for today's Art Minute. Thank you for following Toledo Museum of Art on Periscope.